No matter what kind of remake Ocarina of Time is, people are going to be upset. So with remakes, you generally have two sides of people. You have people who basically want the game to be the same thing. Think something like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. The remake is very much the same game, just better graphics, some improvements here and there, a little bit of extra content, but it's not a reimagining. Like, it is pretty much a replacement of the original game. But then you have other remakes like Silent Hill 2 or Resident Evil 2. Both of those take the bones of the original game. They take the same story, the same characters, the same locations for the most part, but they change things up. They might add or change a location, and these aren't really replacements for the original. Like, you could play both games and have very different experiences. Now, with Ocarina of Time, I think chances are it's going to be like that second kind, like the reimagining, and that's honestly what I want it to be. So you have people that are just going to be upset when it's not Ocarina of Time HD. Like, they want it to just be the same exact game with better graphics and better controls. And while I don't think that would be the worst thing ever, I feel like for a game like Ocarina of Time that already got a remaster / remake, whatever you want to consider the 3DS version, I'd love to see it reimagined in 2026 on the Switch too. Like, if I want to play the original, it's very accessible on the Nintendo Switch. Like, all you have to have is NSO Online, the one with N64. It's also a game I think can have a lot built off of it. Like, this game was originally made almost 30 years ago. I'd love to see them maybe add more side content, maybe improve the combat, like make it more in depth, touch up some of the dungeons, like maybe add a whole other dungeon, whether it's optional or not, make the story more cinematic. Make it so it's not supposed to just be a replacement of the original or the 3DS version. Like, have it be respectful to the original, don't change everything, but give people a great reason to play this other than just simply replaying Ocarina of Time. And I think what I talked about earlier is just the problem with remake discourse in general, is that literally no matter what, you're never going to make everyone happy. It could literally be the best remake of all time, and there will be people upset that the remake even exists, or people upset that the remake isn't exactly what they wanted. Like with Resident Evil 2, like I mentioned before. It's widely considered to be a fantastic game. It's now the best-selling Resident Evil game as of a few days ago, but there's people upset it doesn't have fixed cameras and tank controls, that they changed some things. And this isn't to say that criticisms of removed content aren't valid. Like, you could be upset that it didn't have the zapping system or whatever. But I think a lot of times when people are just saying that they want a remake to just be like a one-to-one recreation, what they really want is a remaster, and that's fine. Now I just want to say, if you like commentary videos like this, be sure to subscribe because I make multiple videos a week. I think remasters can be a good thing, especially if it's a game that's not super accessible, that has some pretty glaring issues, but that's very different from a remake. Like, usually a remaster isn't going to be like the big game of the year, and most people don't even really consider it to be like its own new game. A remake, on the other hand, is a completely different thing. It's a completely new experience, at least for the most part. Like, yes, you do have remakes like Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, like Super Mario RPG, like The Last of Us Part 1. Those are remakes which aren't one-to-one, but I would hardly call any of those reimaginings. So for Ocarina of Time, it is my favorite Zelda game. It is one of my favorite games of all time. I originally played the 3DS version when I was a kid, and then I played the Nintendo 64 version on my Wii U. And while I would still play something that's pretty much just like a one-to-one recreation in HD with some improvements, I don't know, I'm usually excited to see how classic games can be made in a more modern way. Because obviously game design has changed a lot in the past 30 years. Like, Nintendo 64 games are very, very different than even the next generation after it. And that doesn't make them bad, but things change over time. But I'd love to see a reimagining of this game that respects the original, but like really builds on it. Like, makes it feel like a new game at the same time, while still being Ocarina of Time, if that makes sense. Now, this game is probably not going to be perfect. Like, the people are going to nitpick anything because it's Ocarina of Time. And that happens with pretty much any remake of a beloved game. Like Silent Hill 2, I think there's valid criticisms of it. I think that some of the locations drag a little much, that there's a lot more combat than you might want. But I also think that people are going to try to nitpick everything. Like, if there's just one minor thing they don't like, they're going to make it seem more extreme. It's because a lot of people have very emotional attachments to these games, and there's a version of that game that exists in their head that just cannot be recreated. Like, if you played a game when you were 5 years old, like, there's a version of that game that you will never be able to play again. So if anything doesn't match in the remake, they'll be ready to just go off on it. Now, I think we could all agree that's flawed, so I understand why people feel that way, and I'm not going to act like that's never the case for me, where there's a version of a game that just will not exist anymore because it's in my memory. But I try to be understanding when I play these games, and try to be a little objective. Like, obviously games are subjective in terms of if you enjoy them or not. Like, there's no universally good or universally bad game, because it just comes down to what you like. But I try to look at things from different angles just to see, like, okay, maybe I personally don't like this, but this could still be a well-designed game, or vice versa. So with the remake, here's what I would want to see. I want to see the story for the most part remain the same. Like, I don't want them to add like a new sidekick to Link who says like MCU quotes the whole time. Like, I don't want something like that. I don't want a whole new map. I don't want them to just change every dungeon. I don't want them to just recreate all of the dungeons and just make them completely different. What I would like is, first of all, improve the combat, because that's one of my biggest issues with the original. Now, it's not a huge issue, like, obviously, if it's like a top 5 game of all time for me, it could only be that bad, but it's very much like a product of its time, so I'd like to see them expand on that more. I wouldn't mind seeing the music get overhauled, like, obviously keeping the music the same for the most part, but maybe having like a full orchestra do it, like make it grander. Like with the Thousand Year Door remake, one of the things I loved that I think was an underrated change was the music. Like pretty much all the tracks are the same for the most part, like you have the same tracks, but they added new boss themes, they reorchestrated what was existing, and it sounded amazing, so I'd love to see them do that. I'd like to see them maybe add more side content, because there were side quests in Ocarina of Time, but nothing too crazy. Like there's the Skulltulas. I'd like it to be a little more cinematic, which I think is a given. I'd like to see maybe some new parts of the map or existing parts, just to change things up a little bit, so it's not like one-to-one where it's like the same exact place you were traversing. No, I'm not saying they need to pad the game, but I think it would be cool to see some extra content like that. And another thing is like with the water dungeon, so I don't like the water dungeon. I know a lot of people say that if you don't like it, you're just an idiot, or they choose to like ignore any of its flaws, like to be performative, and that's not everyone. I think some people generally do like this, but they just don't understand why others don't dislike it. I definitely do think there are some people that just kind of act like it's better than it is just because it's the popular thing to hate. But anyway, I'd like to see them improve that. Like we saw it greatly improved in the 3DS version, because at least you didn't have to go back to the menu screen to just keep putting on the boots like you had the bottom screen. But that's obviously not going to be here, so I'm sure they'll find a way to make it better. I'd maybe like some more lore, like flesh out the story a little more, because the story in Ocarina of Time is good, like I like it, but I'd like to maybe see if there's ways to get more context, maybe add a little more there. But you know what, there are a lot of things I don't want them to add. And as for a new dungeon, I think I mentioned this before, I wouldn't mind if they added a new dungeon that fit into the game, or an optional dungeon of some kind. I think it'd be a really cool addition, because it would just be so unexpected. But now there's also things I don't want them to add. I don't want them to fundamentally, completely change the game. Like, I don't want them to cut the dungeon total in half or something like that. Like Resident Evil 3 Remake, I think the gameplay was good, but it completely changed some of the characters. It cut so much content. Like, that's something I don't want to see. Like, I don't want them to just remove characters from this game. I don't want them to remove dungeons. I don't want them to make the characters feel completely different. Like, it's different if you're changing up a character a little bit. Like, especially some older games where, like, it's kind of unserious. Like, something like Resident Evil 4 and the remake. So Leon does change from the OG to the remake. And I prefer OG Leon. But he's still, like, fundamentally the same character. Like, he still feels like the same person. So this isn't the same, because Ocarina of Time has limited characters that are, like, huge parts of the story. Like, you have Link, Zelda, Ganondorf. You have your other side characters in the story. But for the type of game it is, like, I don't think that's really going to be an issue where they're just going to completely overhaul or have, like, a character assassination of someone. So I'm not really worried about that. I don't want them to pad dungeons for the sake of padding dungeons. Like, as much as I love the Silent Hill 2 remake, I definitely felt like certain parts dragged a little much. So I don't want them to add like an extra 45 minutes to every dungeon or anything just for the sake of it. So overall, what I'm looking for from this game is respecting the original while building on it. And I've said that before, but I want to just clarify what I mean, and it's the things I've been talking about in this video. Like, this is going to be the big Nintendo game of 2026. I don't want the big Nintendo game of 2026 to just be a remaster. That would be pretty boring. I know a lot of people complain about Nintendo making too many remakes, but I don't really have that issue with them. Like, yeah, we got Star Fox, that was a remake. Yeah, we're getting Ocarina of Time. But first of all, this is not replacing a new 3D Zelda game. Tears of the Kingdom came out 3 years ago, so it's going to be another couple years at least. So this is kind of like holding fans over until then. And besides Star Fox and Ocarina of Time, we got the Thousand Year Door remake in 2024. We got Super Mario RPG in 2023. And I don't think those were unnecessary remakes. I think those are actually pretty necessary remakes. So I'm not anti-remake. I'm actually encouraging companies to make remakes if they fit certain criteria. One would be, is it actually necessary? Like, is it an old game that you can improve with modern improvements so that you could really reimagine? Is it a game that's not very accessible anymore? Is it a game that just has some really big flaws that just need a complete overhaul? Because something like The Last of Us Part 1, like I've said many times that it's just a completely unnecessary remake. The game itself is the definitive way to play The Last of Us. I mean, it looks better, it plays better, but it just didn't need to happen. And also, I think it's fair to criticize like Sony for having a lot more remasters and remakes because they're making less original games. Nintendo, whether you like their Switch 2 games or not, most of the games they're putting out are still original games. Like, they're not remakes or remasters. So if you're still watching this video, if you disagree with what I'm saying, where you just don't want to remake at all, or you want it to be a one-to-one remake, if that's the case, I understand where you're coming from, because, again, it is one of my favorite games of all time. So I can understand why you might be hesitant and say, well, I think that if they change it, like, it might lose the soul of Ocarina of Time. But the original version and the 3DS version will always be there. Like, you play Ocarina of Time, the original, on the same system as the remake, so it's not like it's going anywhere. And it's also not like Nintendo just keeps remaking the 3D Zelda games. They've remastered them, yes, but they've never really made a remake, unless you count the 3DS versions of remakes, which I really don't. Plus, those are old games on like hardware from almost 30 years ago now. Like, yeah, the 3DS came out in 2011, but the hardware was used was like early 2000s, and it is one of the most beloved games of all time. So it remains to be seen. Maybe the remake comes out and everyone hates it. Maybe it completely loses like the essence of Ocarina of Time. But I'm optimistic in what this game can be. And I really do think it's going to be more of like a reimagining. Like, I don't think they're just going to copy it one-to-one. If that was the case, I don't think they would be making this their big 2026 release. I don't think they'd be hiding the gameplay from it. So I think that's the case. And again, like I said in the beginning of the video, people are going to be upset no matter what, because people want different things out of remakes. Some people don't want remakes at all. And there's no getting around that. And I want to hear your perspective. If you disagree with me, I want to know what you're looking for from this remake, if you think it's unnecessary. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I have a lot of other Zelda content, a lot of other commentary videos like this, so be sure to subscribe and join my Discord. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.